And so we're really in for a really special hour this morning. It also, for the first time, this is going to be, normally these are closed, no press, no tweeting, but this is going to be streamed worldwide, globally. So welcome to our global audience through the Periscope app, which is pretty cool. And, Arianna doesn't really need an introduction, but Arianna is the founder of the Huffington Post. She is president and chief editorial officer of the Huffington Post Media Group. She is an esteemed author. She's probably been on every television show and talk show that you can imagine. And before I bring Arianna out here, I'm going to play a little clip, little video, kind of set the mood. Then we're going to get into a wonderful discussion with Arianna, and then we'll have some time, hopefully some questions at the end. So with that, Maestro, play the video.
Success, money, and power have practically become synonymous. But it's time for a third metric.
She's written a life-changing new book called Thrive, and I loved it. Please welcome
Arianna Huffington.
Arianna Huffington.
Arianna Huffington.
Arianna Huffington.
Arianna Huffington.
Tell us what happened that day in April of 2007.
I collapsed from exhaustion. On the way down, hit my head on my desk, broke my cheekbone, got 4 stitches on my right eye.
You're literally working yourself into illness.
Exactly. And that's what got me thinking about how burnout and exhaustion and sleep deprivation are really fueling our whole workplace. We had shrunk a good life down to 2 metrics of success, money and power. And this is like trying to sit on a 2-legged stool. But sooner or later, you fall off. So that was really the beginning, and now I came up with this idea of that we need a third metric of success. Beyond money and power. One founded on well-being, wisdom, our ability to wonder and to give back.
You have so many important things that I urge people to read this book. I've given it to everyone I know.
I'm overwhelmed by the response. I've loved traveling the country and speaking with people about making small changes in their lives so that they can not just succeed, but thrive.
Yeah. What a privilege. And I'll tell you, we're going to get into the book a little bit later, but I will tell you that if the world read the book, this world would be in such a better place based on what you preach and what you stand for and the values that you believe would make everybody a better person. And I want to thank you for writing that book because I thought it was terrific. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. Can you all hear me? Because you have to deal with my accent on top of everything else.
Everybody good up there?
Everybody good up there?
All right. So for those of us who are not overly familiar with Arianna, and there are some, why don't you just give us a little background and just tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of how it all got started. And
so it all got started in Athens, Greece, and I say that because I joked recently that I was really born in Fresno, California, and cultivated this accent to give myself an air of being an ethnic minority, which is very popular everywhere except in Arizona. And but the truth is that this accent is for real. I was born in Athens, and in a one-bedroom apartment. My mother left my father when she complained about his philandering, and he told her not to interfere in his private life. That's how they do things in Greece. And but she was sort of an amazing, amazing woman. The book is dedicated to her because she always made us feel that we could go for our dreams, no matter how difficult or impossible they seem, and that it doesn't matter if we failed along the way. So there's the combination of go for your dreams, it's okay to fail. In fact, she used to say failure is not the opposite of success, it's a stepping stone to success. And always made my sister and me feel that she wouldn't love us any less if we failed. So when I saw a picture of Cambridge University in a magazine, and I said to my mother, I would like to go there. And my mother said, let's see how you can go there. Everybody else said, don't be ridiculous. You know, we have no money, you don't speak English, and it's really hard to get into Cambridge if you're an English girl. So, but that was not my mother. She found out that I could take my GCEs through the British Council. I learned English, although my accent has not changed. And
it's very sexy.
It's been the bane of my existence. I've tried to change it. And then finally I met Henry Kissinger, and then I relaxed about it, because he said to me, in American public life, you can never overestimate the advantages of complete and total incomprehensibility. So I got into Cambridge, and that kind of changed my life, because not just the fact that I got into Cambridge, but I became president of the Cambridge Union, the debating society, and a publisher happened to see me debating the changing role of women, and emailed me, did not email me, there was no email at the time, I'm 3,000 years old, sent me a letter inviting me to write a book on what I'd expressed in the debate. I wrote back and I said, I can't write. He said, can you have lunch? We had lunch, and that's how I became a writer, completely by accident at the age of 23.
Wow. So, all right, now we're going to fast
forward
a little bit. Where did the idea come from starting the Huffington Post? What was the genesis behind that? And when exactly did you start it? I know
2005,
yeah,
2009.
Yeah, so 5.
We're going to be 10 years
5.
old on
10
May
years.
9th. I confused the 9 and the 5.
So what was the genesis behind it, and where did the idea come from?
So I always loved starting conversations and bringing multiple people into the conversation with no hierarchy, just people who had interesting ideas and interesting things to discuss. And I thought that was what was happening online. And I realized that a lot of great people were never going to have a blog. The first person I invited to blog on the Huffington Post was Arthur Schlesinger, the great historian, who had a lot of interesting things to say about the news of the day, but would not really take the time to do it because he was writing what turned out to be his last book, etc. Same with Norman Mailer. These were people that I wanted to be in the conversation, mixed with students, with people whom nobody had heard of, and that was the kind of non-hierarchical, democratic conversation I wanted to have. I partnered with Kenny Lair, whom you know, who's been a fantastic co-founder, and we launched the Huffington Post as a combination of this global conversation, aggregation of the best of the web, and our own original reporting, which of course has now grown into winning a Pulitzer Prize, having multiple investigative reporters around the world, etc. But it was these 3 elements, plus comments, that have always been sort of the DNA of the Huffington Post.
Was it started, in a basement someplace? Was it started out in an office? Did you have someone who believed in you that said, you know what, I'm going to give you some money to build this thing?
So basically,
yep. Sorry, no, go ahead.
What happened is that we started with like $2 million. I think you started with 13, right?
Yes, I borrowed 13. That's correct.
So, well, we
very good.
Yeah,
sure.
I've done my homework. Anything else you want to know about Bill, see me after. But we basically, we each kind of raised $1 million. I remember I love going hiking with my girlfriends. I lived in LA at the time. I now live in New York. And our rule is we go hiking, the one in better shape talks on the way up, the other on the way down. And I remember hiking with Laurie David. At the time, she was married to Larry David, Seinfeld, Curb Your Enthusiasm. She was a dear friend. I told her about the idea of the Huffington Post. She said, I'm in. So she was my first investor. I think she never thought she would see her money back. When she got divorced from Larry, they split the investment. They each got 50%, which was kind of something when AOL bought the Huffington Post 4 years ago. So that's how I raised the money from my friends.
Wow. And so when you had that dream, like I go back and I had my dream to build this kind of a company, I never ever dreamed that it would reach what it reached. I was very busy just trying to run the business and had some basic principles and never ever believed, or I didn't start out by saying, I'm going to, conquer the world and have the largest, whatever. I just didn't, I wasn't focused on that. I was focused on the product and the people. Did you, when your mom, you talked about your mom, about how she was very driven and said you could do anything and probably instilled some incredible principles. By the way, I also love the story in the book about your mom when she fell on the floor and moved on. That was just very touching. But did you, like when you started out, did you think you were going to conquer the world and this is what your goal was? Or did you have a different dream?
I really believed that we had tapped into something in the zeitgeist. I believe that whenever you launch a business or a project, if you can tap into the zeitgeist, you have the wind on your back. Something happens beyond your own effort. And I really believed that the conversation was moving online, and that I wanted that conversation to be global, and that I wanted everybody participating. And so one of our mottos from the beginning became, if you have something to say it on the Huffington Post. And even now that we have 850 journalists, reporters around the world, I have to admit that my favorite thing is coming here and inviting all of you to write on the Huffington Post, bringing in new voices. And I'm going to make it super easy for you. I'm going to give you my email address. And that way you can bypass the growing Huffington Post bureaucracy. And my email address is very simple. The good thing about founding a company is you get the good email address. It's Arianna, with one R and two N's, at huffingtonpost.com. And we would love you to write about anything that is significant to you, anything that matters to you. It could be funny, it could be serious, it could be about your personal life, it could be about politics, anything you want. I just love that, and you have no idea how many great voices have come to the Huffington Post because we are inviting them in. It doesn't have to be exclusive. That's the other thing. If you have your own blog, if you write something on Facebook or LinkedIn or anything, just cross-post it. Because one of the things that we discovered early on, and I think you have too in your business, is that ubiquity is the new exclusivity.
It's true.
It's no longer about exclusivity. It's about being everywhere and putting your content or your client's content on as many platforms as possible.
Yeah, and I, if enough of us write in, I actually don't think that Tim will have a problem changing the name to the Huffington Horizon Post.
No, actually, it alliterates. I think it's double H.
Exactly, double H.
Perfect.
So you've transformed that. I think you've transformed that business, and you actually, going back to 2005, when the world was really starting to change in a big way from a digital democracy standpoint. What other industries today do you feel are ripe for transformational change?
So I feel that the way we do business is ripe for transformational change. There is something in the zeitgeist that is absolutely stunning, and that's what I try to capture in Thrive. That's what we are practicing at the Huffington Post, but we are monitoring what's happening everywhere. Because for decades now, business, the way we do our jobs, has been fueled by burnout, exhaustion, and sleep deprivation. Basically, men, except the men here who are all enlightened, but men outside this space and not watching us on Periscope, have designed a completely unsustainable world where they brag about working 24/7. They brag about being sleep deprived. I had dinner with a guy recently who said to me, bragged to me, I only slept for 4 hours last night. And I thought to myself, I didn't say it, but I thought to myself, you know what? if you had slept 5, this dinner would have been a lot more interesting. So now, the reason we're in this moment of disruption is that for the first time, modern science is validating ancient wisdom. You see, for decades, people really believed that the way to succeed is to burn out. And now, modern science is telling us that actually, when you don't get enough sleep, your decisions are not going to be as good. I mean, I quote Bill Clinton in the book, who said, the most important mistakes I made when I was tired.
Right.
Now, he did not specify what mistakes. But I can say for sure, the most important hiring mistakes I've made, and as you know, that's probably the worst thing you can do in a business, hiring the wrong people. Keeping them is even worse. But so I found that it was on the days when I was exhausted, when I wanted to cross this thing off my to-do list and move on to the next thing, and so I missed the red flags. But we can all think of moments in our lives. I mean, we see now the connection between sleep, meditation, recharging, and the impact on the bottom line, because now we are measuring it. So you don't just have to be a benevolent employer, you just have to look at the data. So it's kind of a fascinating moment, a combination of seeing the cost we've been paying personally and in terms of dollars. 75% of our healthcare costs go to stress-related preventable diseases. That's stunning.
Yep.
So I think this is really, we see that disruption happening in businesses. We see it in the wellness industry. I'm fascinated by the changes that people are willing to make in their lives. And that's why actually I just finished taping a 6-week course. Would love you to take it with Oprah on oprah.com. It's starting on May 3rd. And what we've done is really take the 12 steps in Thrive. I chose 12 deliberately because we are addicted to our current way of living, attached to our devices, etc., etc. So each week we work through two steps. And what is fascinating, Bill, is that just making microscopic changes has a dramatic impact.
Yep.
So the first week, I just watched the first week episode. My guest teacher is Kobe Bryant. And I chose Kobe Bryant because he's not the kind of teacher you would expect to come and talk to you about sleep and meditation, right? But he discovered that when he slept enough and did his meditation, just even 10 minutes a day, he was better on the field. Mm-hmm. So seeing these things as performance enhancement tools is what is transformational.
So you did not always think this way.
No.
You had a wake-up call, and I want you to take us back several years ago, because you were a hard-driving, ambitious lady who had a dream and a vision, and you were pulled in a billion different directions, and you were working really, really, really hard. But unfortunately, and you know, actually, I say this a lot, where sometimes the worst thing that ever happens in your life turns out to be the best thing that ever happened in your life. You don't know that for a while. So you had a situation that happened back years ago. Take us back to that day and what the revelation was, and how you were able to transform yourself, and you are more successful today than you were prior to that event, yet you changed the whole way that you go about seeing the world and business and yourself and your interactions with people and your soul. So talk to us a little bit about that.
He's a very good interviewer, isn't he? So as you watched on the video, actually 8 years ago yesterday, I collapsed from burnout and broke my cheekbone on the way down, ended up with stitches over my eye.
You were in the office, right?
I was in my office, yes. I literally started feeling cold, and I got up to get a sweater, and I collapsed. And as I remember, as I came to in my own pool of blood, I literally asked myself the question, you know, by conventional definitions of success, I was successful. but by any sane definition of success. Can we all agree that if you come to in your own pool of blood and nobody has shot you, you are not successful? So that was the beginning of really looking at what success is and how we've shrunken the definition of success down to these two metrics of money and power, that two-legged stool, and we need that third metric, the third leg, which is well-being, first of all, our health, because really, if you think of it, is anything worth sacrificing our health to? And yet, Bill, I can't tell you the number of people, especially women, I think because they are more open, who come to me and they literally tell me about what happened to them, their collapse. I mean, a prominent woman I met in Boston the other day who was running a big company talked to me about how she started having panic attacks. And she had to give up work for 3 months. And it was all stress-related. I mean, the stories are unbelievable. And if anybody here has stories of burnout, please share them. Because you have no idea how many people may read your story or my story and be able to make small changes in their lives that will make it possible for them not to have their own wake-up call. You know, people think that you can only learn through pain. I want to change that. Why can't you learn through my own pain? You know, why can't we learn from each other instead of having to repeat the same mistakes? So for me, the first thing I changed was around sleep. I went from 4 to 5 hours to 8, not immediately, incrementally, and that has become, for me, transformational. Now I prioritize it. That means learning to say no. Did you know no is a full sentence? It meant learning to say no to good things. I mean, just to give you an example, I was doing Morning Joe this morning, and last night I went to the premiere of Veep. It's hilarious, with Julia Louis-Dreyfus. And there was a dinner afterwards. I left and went home. Had a hot bath. Actually, let me give you one quick tip about anybody having trouble sleeping. Hot bath. Let the day go. Or hot shower if you prefer, but I love just letting the day go. That day is done, with all its good things and its bad things, like every day is a mixture. And then it's no devices by your bed. Anybody here who sleeps with devices by your bed?
Raise your hand. Who sleeps with their device by their bed?
Wow. Okay. Just read. I have 55. I have 55 pages of scientific end notes at the end of Thrive that show why you should never ever do that. Because basically, sleep is kind of sacred. It's your time for recharging and waking up ready to take on the world and face any difficulties. If your phone is charging by your bed and you wake up in the middle of the night for whatever reason, you are going to be tempted to look at your data, admit it. And if you do that, you reintroduce your day life into your night life, and everything can wait. And you know what? Right now, we take better care of our smartphones than we take care of ourselves. Like, I bet everybody here knows approximately how much battery remains on your smartphone.
It's true.
And if it gets below like 13%, you get anxious and look around for a recharging shrine. Well, when I collapsed, if Bill, you had asked me that morning, how are you? I would have said fine.
Right.
Because I was so disconnected from myself, and because we all get so used to being always tired. Oh, I have to tell you, this is so funny. If you go on Google now, don't do it right now, don't take your devices out. Multitasking is not good. But if you go on Google and type the question, why am I? You know how Google autocompletes? You know what the autocomplete is?
Tired.
Why am I so tired?
Yeah.
And the second autocomplete, why am I always tired?
Yeah.
It's an epidemic.
Yeah. And you know, you made the point in the book that we all, you know, you said we take care of our smartphones. You made the point in the book that we all recharge our smartphones multiple times a day, we recharge them, but we don't recharge ourselves.
Right.
And I thought that was a really interesting comment. By the way, Sleep Number is a big client of ours. and I actually see an opportunity here for you to spread the gospel along with them, because they believe actually incredible technologies in their beds, incredible, they preach the health and wellness of sleep. So I think there's a marriage. I think there's a marriage here. I do.
And you don't know that, but do you know what my next book is about? Sleep.
Sleep. Wow.
Because I really think I think it could be the one thing that unlocks everything. Because we all do it.
Yeah.
And because growing majorities have problems sleeping. Even if they go to sleep easily, they wake up. And the science, I've been reading the science in working on the book. It's just absolutely amazing how much we know that could make our sleep better. And do you know, in the 1970s, there was really one sort of sleep center at a major university. Now there are 2,580 sleep centers at Harvard and Stanford and the Mayo Clinic and the Cleveland Clinic.
Yeah.
And people have realized the connection between sleep deprivation and health. Now they are finding connection with Alzheimer's, aging, everything.
So, just out of curiosity, how many people here? Let's be honest. Who gets 8 hours sleep a night? I'm not talking about. Well, I said at night, not during the day. No, that's pretty good. 7, 6, and 5 or less. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So. If for some reason you can't get a full night's sleep, let's say you have a toddler, something that is outside your control, or a newborn baby, have a nap. At the Huffington Post, we have 2 nap rooms. Do you have a nap room here?
We are creating nap rooms in our new spaces.
That would be fabulous.
We are. And if we weren't, we are now. Yep. Yeah.
This is great. I love it. You have no idea how fabulous it is. When we opened our nap rooms 4 years ago, at first there was a lot of skepticism. Like people say, who is going to be seen in a big New York newsroom walking into a nap room in the middle of the day? Now they are perpetually full. Although I must say, the other day I was going by one of them and I saw 2 people coming out of it. And I thought, I don't know what your HR rules are here, but I thought to myself, whatever it takes to recharge you.
Exactly. So again, I read the book. I loved it. It's things that I aspire myself to become, and it's taken a very long time to me to try to figure out my own balance in my own life. The world is moving at light speed. Technology is making us all 24/7 robots in terms of being on all the time. Companies are under so much pressure. So I guess it's up to each individual person to there's no magic wand, there's no fairy dust. It's up to each individual person. But what advice do you have? Because there are extremes. You got people over here who are workaholics 24/7. They're living their life that way. They're probably going to fall and crash and burn, just like you said. And there are other people who are working very strongly towards a balanced life that includes a lot of enrichment. What's your advice? How do people get started? Because aren't they afraid about their careers, and they're not going to get ahead, and the next person next to them is going to work harder? And if you read the book Outliers, and Outliers was actually about the people that succeed spend more time in a certain area than somebody else, and it's really a numbers game. So you have to work really, really hard, and in reality, if you look at the numbers, those people who are putting in the time are the ones that are getting ahead. Now, you're not saying don't put in the time. What you're talking about is putting in a different kind of time that becomes more valuable to you.
Right.
And like I said, you are more productive, more valuable, You probably think more clearly than you do now than you did before. But what advice do you have for people who are trying to figure it out, but feel so overwhelmed? How do they get started?
I would say to start very small. It's not like one big dramatic change. It's about small microscopic changes that you introduce. Like I recommend, start by getting 30 minutes more sleep. The people here who are sleeping 5 and 6 hours, just start by getting 30 minutes more. Everybody can make that happen. It may mean not watching House of Cards that night. I mean, we all have discretionary time.
Sure.
Or start by meditating for 5 minutes. Everybody has 5 minutes. I have specific steps you can take. I also have an appendix at the end of the book that has 12 meditation apps, because it's kind of paradoxical. We're now using technology to help us disconnect from technology. So just experiment. Also, some other things have to do with the things that drain our energy. Because, Bill, you talked about time, but it's really about energy. It's not, you can be at your desk for 12 hours and be like checked out for a lot of it, or be operating at 30% of your capacity. Right. The important thing is, can you operate at 100% of your capacity for X number of hours and then go and recharge? That's a more valuable employee. That's somebody who enjoys their life and their work more. And that's really what I'm talking about. I have to tell you, I have never been more productive. It's not like I'm chilling under a mango tree. I think I have never been clearer about where we are going. Like 4 years ago, we were at 30 million unique visitors when AOL bought the Huffington Post. We are now at 214 million unique visitors. 4 years ago, we were in one country, the United States. We are now in 13, soon to be 15 countries. All these things, I think, require just clarity of vision of where we are going. And I promise you, the fact that I was not operating from exhaustion made a big difference. We need a lot of role models. I was doing a speech in Boston at the Simmons Leadership Conference a few days ago with Padma Warrior. She is the Chief Technology Officer of Cisco. And I use her as a role model because she oversees tens of thousands of engineers, but she talks about how she gets 8 hours sleep, she meditates, she writes haikus, she paints, and every Saturday she does a digital detox. And I think to myself, and I tell everybody, if Padma, who is the Chief Technology Officer of Cisco, can do a digital detox on Saturdays, so can I. And it also reminds me of God. Remember, God took a day off.
That's right.
He created heaven and earth, which was a pretty awesome job, with all its imperfections, in 6 days, and then he took the 7th day off. I think that's a very significant metaphor, because really he didn't have to. Okay, he or she is omnipresent, omnipowerful, omni-everything. I think that metaphor is for us.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, do you feel that for the most part that CEOs of companies believe in this? And I know in the book you gave an awful lot of examples about companies that have embraced this and higher retention, lower healthcare costs, more satisfied employee base. So there are lots of examples. I would argue that it's in the minority in today's world. I also believe that culture within a corporation is what's going to drive success in the future. So once again, I think you're a visionary in terms of where you believe the world should go, and I think that those who adapt it are the ones who are going to win. You and I talked about this. The challenge that we have in our own company is that we're growing so fast that we just can't get ahead because we're growing so fast, and it's a wonderful place to aspire to get to, and I will not retire until I finally get there in this company. We're blessed with great growth, but we're blessed with people having to work so hard to keep up with that growth, and that's a real challenge. Now, fortunately, we're offering a lot of things in the wellness area, We have breathe sessions and things of that nature. So we're trying to embrace that. But I would argue that, and I want to know how you feel about this, do you think that most CEOs across America feel that way? And how about in the rest of the world? Are we ahead of the game or are we behind the game?
Great question. So I feel that we are in a moment of transition equivalent to going from the Middle Ages to the Renaissance. If you look at that historical period, you saw that everything was coexisting during the time of transition. So you now have CEOs who continue to operate and treat their employees the way everybody was doing even a few years ago.
Right.
All the way to, say, the new CEO, Satya Nadella of Microsoft, who gave an interview recently in which he said, I sleep for 8 hours a night. Now, in the past, I think if a CEO was sleeping 8 hours a night, they wouldn't admit it, right? I mean, the culture was such. So that's kind of, Jeff Bezos said the same thing. So there's a shift both in what CEOs are doing and what they're willing to acknowledge. Like last year, actually, was the year of CEOs coming out, not as being gay, but as sleeping 8 hours and meditating. I mean, Ray Dalio, the founder of Bridgewater, the biggest global hedge fund, said, I've been meditating for 45 years. I consider it the foundation of my success. And I said to him, why are you telling us no? He said, there is a moment when meditation is no longer seen as kind of flaky, California, new agey. And so there is a big shift. But you're absolutely right. Everything is coexisting right now.
Yeah.
But the more data we have, like Mark Bertolini at Aetna, brought in Duke University to study the impact of bringing these mindfulness, recharging practices into Aetna, and they found a 7% reduction in healthcare costs and a 69-minute-a-week improvement in productivity. As you know, the more we measure it, the more people will get to adopt it.
Have you gotten Tim to adopt it yet?
Tim has been very good. I mean, I'm working on him to get more sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. But he's been really good about the culture.
Yeah.
You know, he loves our nap rooms. AOL gives great health benefits and also matches charitable giving, which is also another important part. You know, one of the pillars of this third metric is giving. Giving is a shortcut to happiness, puts everything else in perspective. So, yes, I think culture, as you said, is what helps transform individuals' lives.
Can you define, you know, we've kind of touched upon it a little bit, but there's success and power, and then there is the third metric, which you think is the most important metric. Yeah,
Well-being, which we've been talking about.
Well-being.
Wisdom, which is really about tapping into that inner source. We all know, it's like we call it being in the zone. We all know those moments when we are connected to our source of wisdom and intuition, and no human being will be there all the time. The question is how quickly can we course correct and get back there.
Yeah, and don't confuse wisdom with knowledge. The book talks about the difference between the two, and wisdom is very different than knowledge.
Well, because, you know, over 90% of our data has been created in the last 2 years. But the world's wisdom has been forever.
Yeah.
So it's really, we need the big data, but we also need wisdom to understand what matters and what doesn't matter. The third pillar of the third metric is wonder. I just love looking at the views from here. You know, we can take it so much for granted, but I hope you stop during the day, you pause for a minute to take in this beautiful view, or to look at the flowers and really take them in. So we take so much of that for granted, partly because we are multitasking. And we think that, we think that by multitasking we're more efficient. Science shows there's no such thing as multitasking. It's actually task switching. And it makes us more stressed and more tired. At the Huffington Post, for example, we no longer allow devices at meetings because people are not really in a meeting. They're like, they're doing email. Don't come to the meeting. So my own leadership meetings have gone from 1 hour to half an hour because everybody's present. They come up with ideas. We discuss things. We're done. I remember before my wake-up call, I would walk down the streets of New York and always be on the phone or worse, texting while walking. When I stopped doing that, I started noticing things. I remember I live in Soho. I remember walking with a friend by my apartment. I saw this beautiful building. I said, well, this building is gorgeous. When did it go up? She said, 1819.
Yeah.
So what else are we missing?
Yeah.
So that's wonder. And the fourth is giving.
It's giving. Correct. Yeah. So last question, and then we're going to open up the floor for any questions anybody has out here. I know we may have gotten some tweeted questions as well, but last question. Did you have any mentors along the way? And if so, would you mind naming a few and who inspired you? And who inspires you today?
Well, first of all, my biggest mentor has been my mother, because she, as you know, because you've read the book, thank you, Bill, because she really radiated that sense of gratitude and abundance about life, no matter how hard things were. And things were hard.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important point, because everything we're discussing here is not just for people who've achieved things and are now recalibrating their lives. Wherever you are in your life, whether you're just starting in your career, whether you've lost your job, whether you're struggling to put food on the table, the more you connect to your own sense of wisdom and strength, the more able you're going to be to deal with all the challenges. It's a little bit like they tell you on the aeroplane, put your own oxygen mask first.
Right. Right.
So definitely my mother. Now, what I'm doing as we are launching the Huffington Post in countries around the world, I learn from every country. And you asked me earlier, and actually I didn't respond, what's happening around the world? Well, it's fascinating. Every country is introducing interesting new ways of working and living, and they're all different. Like in Germany, Daimler has come up with a vacation email policy, which we're going to institute at the Huffington Post. You may want to do it here.
Hold on. What is it? What is it?
So if you're going on vacation, let's say.
Oh, I think.
Yeah, let's say.
Right.
Somebody called George here is going on vacation, and you get an email. Normally, I'm sending you an email. Normally, I would get an out-of-office email back, and then often 5 minutes later, I would get a response, because once we see the email, we are like going to respond most likely.
Yep.
So now, what Daimler does, which we're doing now, not yet, but we're working on it technically, I would get an email saying, George is on vacation. He will not see this email. If it is urgent, contact Mary. If it is not, email him again in 2 weeks. This email is deleted. How scary is that?
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that if it's important, it's going to go on to somebody.
True. Yeah.
And the truth is they have found that over 50% of emails are never sent again.
Right.
Because they're delegated,
they get an answer
they're
in another way.
handled.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
He
How
has
about?
not committed himself yet.
How about? We have a few more minutes. How about we open up any questions from this wonderful-looking group of people that we've assembled for Arianna? Yeah, over here.
Slightly personal question. With being such a powerful woman, and knowing that you have 2 daughters, how do you try your best every day to be a role model to them, knowing that you aspire so, knowing that you get so much inspiration from your own mother?
Thank you. What a great question. In fact, it's interesting. My oldest daughter, Christina, is developing a web show about children interviewing their parents. And so yesterday was the day to interview me. and we posted a picture on Instagram. You can see it. It was so funny because we did it on the couch in my living room, and she took her shoes off, and I found myself answering her questions while massaging her feet. But she asked me that question, and I said to her that the truth is, I have spent a large part of my life feeling guilty that I wasn't as good a mother as my mother, because she was like the ultimate mother. And so we in the conversation, she was like explaining to me why I was a good mother and why I shouldn't be guilty. But I think that there is something about, anybody here with children can probably testify, I think they take the baby out and they put the guilt in. And we all worry that we are not as good, that we are juggling, at being there for them, etc. But it's really terrific to have your children at some point be able to also be your friends. And I must say, because as you know, Bill, in the book I talk about the hard things, not just the easy things.
Yep.
That one of the hardest things that happened to me as a mother was that Christina, in her last year at Yale, got involved in drugs. And I got the call that every mother dreads, Mommy, I can't breathe. And she's now been sober for 3 years. And things are really good. And the tools that she got in her recovery are tools that she's using when anything goes wrong. In launching a new show, in having a relationship. We all need to create two things, I think. One is what we call in the e-course with Oprah, a Thrive Tribe, like a little support group, even if it's a support group of one. And the other is tools, that we can use to deal with challenging times.
Yeah.
So I know later this month you're presenting at the Matrix Awards, and one of your pillars is giving. Can you talk a little bit more about giving to specific communities?
Yes, the Matrix Awards, I'm presenting to Senator Gillibrand. Incidentally, I love the things you're giving to. I think Second Harvest, that you're involved in, is like amazing. Basically taking the food that's not being used and giving it to people who need it. I just love the whole concept, and Drugs-Free America, right? It's all incredibly important. I think my personal cause is something I've built called Ignite for Good, which is helping millennials who are involved in giving do it in a sustainable way. We do trainings, because what happens, you have a lot of people who want to give back, who start amazing groups to give back, and then they burn out. So how can you do it in a way that's sustainable and long-term and throughout your life? So that's one of the causes that I'm very involved in.
More?
The lady here.
Yeah, Eileen?
We have a lot of programs here in the area of wellness. We offer meditation and yoga and a whole host of things. And so frequently, a lot of the employees say they want to go, but they just don't take the time to attend. And I would love to see the organization change the no to yes, that everybody here can participate in all that we have to offer. Do you have any suggestions to all of us about how we can make that happen?
Yes, two suggestions. One is what I do. Let's say every Monday we have a breathing class, because breathing is, as you know, incredibly important. If you are stressed, very quickly you can de-stress just by exhaling and inhaling more deeply. And so what I do is I literally go across the newsroom and say, come on, come to the breathing class. So Bill, I recommend that. You go around and say, come on, meditation time. So I've given him a lot of new jobs, right? And that's one thing. The other is the general understanding that it's going to make you better at your job. Now, I don't think that our job is the most important thing ever, but let's say you believe that there's nothing else that matters in your life except your job. You're going to be much more effective at it if you give yourself that recharging time. And ultimately, increasingly, what matters more than anything is creativity, right? I mean, we have more and more machines that take over every other function. So some of the most creative people in our time, including Steve Jobs, have said that their best ideas came after meditation. Why do you think some of our best ideas come in the shower? Because we can't multitask in the shower. Although I'm terrified that the Apple phone is going to be made waterproof any minute. Incidentally, is Apple one of your clients?
No.
Good. So can I
No.
say something? I am not buying the Apple phone, the Apple Watch. Let me tell you why. Because I don't want to be instantly notified every time I get a stupid email or a text or a Huffington Post alert, for that matter.
No, Sleep Number is our client. That's what we need to purchase.
Exactly.
That's what we need to purchase.
We're set on that.
All right. We have time for one last question.
A man has a question.
Sorry, over here. And maybe there's a bonus question. Maybe one more. Go ahead.
First, I just wanted to thank you. I have the privilege to blog on Huffington Post, and it's such a tremendous platform as well.
Great, thank you. Next time you blog, let me know and I'll tweet it.
I will. But what I wanted to ask you, you referenced a sort of digital Sabbath, taking time away from technology, and I wondered if you do any sort of weekend or during the week digital Sabbath and what that looks like.
So I've done different experiments around digital detox. In fact, this morning, Mika Brzezinski and Cindy Levy, the editor of Glamour, was there too. The three of us were talking about how, not last Christmas, the Christmas before, the three of us did a week-long digital detox. And it was amazing. We blogged about it. We talked about the things that were hard and the things that were good. I mean, one of the great things was I learned that you can have a meal without Instagramming it. Did you know that?
Right, exactly.
And you can watch a sunset without Instagramming it.
Yeah.
And it was terrific. Now, what I like to do is take like long chunks of time, especially over the weekend when I don't check my devices, and also sacred times, like having a meal with my children. I will not look at my devices. You know the phone stacking game they're playing now? If you're going out at a restaurant, you put all your phones in the middle of the table, and the person who reaches for their phone first pays the bill.
Yeah. Okay, one last one. Eileen, you already had yours. For me? This is Arianna's interview.
No, come on, for Bill.
What is it?
All the things that Arianna shared with us, strategies, was there anything in particular that resonated that you think we should adopt here?
What's your name and what do you do?
She's head of our talent management, head of
You're
HR,
head of talent
management.
Fabulous. You and I have to talk, yes.
Eileen is our culture chief.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think that we all as a company need to take ownership of everybody figuring out how to have a better quality of life. And I think it's an ownership that we owe it to ourselves. And I think we need to think about, like you talk about the yoga classes, and I'm not quite sure we are for meditation classes, but I think we should. The challenge is people don't have time to take the time off. So if we as a company force the time, and I believe that people will learn to work smarter, not working less, but I do believe that, I'll take my own situation. I believe I'm working more effectively today and smarter, and I am taking time out to sleep a little bit more, to exercise more, to smell the roses a little bit, because if I don't, life's just not worth it. And I think that we all need to take ownership of that as a company, as a culture. And it starts from me to everybody else within the organization. And if we allow it, and managers here don't get upset because someone's taken a yoga class or a meditation class, and we learn to live with it and incorporate some of these other rules about I like the vacation, one. Some of the challenge we have is we're in the service business and we represent clients. Clients are the ones that pay the bills around here. I'm not producing a product that doesn't talk back. Our product are are clients, and they're living and they're breathing. They have challenges every day, and we have to be there for them. So we do have to figure out, you know, and even when we onboard a client, a piece of new business, we need to make sure that culturally we are aligned and that they believe in our culture, because that way when someone is out on vacation, they'll say, can't believe I can't get a hold of this person. And by the way, me as well. I mean, I need to learn to put my phone back in my holster and stop. So I think, Eileen, I've learned a bunch of things, or reinforced a bunch of things here.
That's fantastic. I would say that you raised the one critical shift that has to happen around working with teams. Like, you can't just be the only person the client can get an answer
Sure.
from. I think the more we create these teams, and also I think collaboration is becoming another huge part of the zeitgeist, moving away from everybody competing with everyone, to just create these teams that work together. I mean, because in a way we have the same problems, you know. We are a 24/7 media company, so we don't know when something will happen in the world and who. So we need to. We have created teams that cover everything, and that's the only sustainable way forward.
Yeah, and I also think, Eileen, you know, and you know this because you've spent a lot of time with me. We've got, you know, I go back to the growth, I go back to the open positions that we have, and I would want nothing more than to overhire and staff for the future. We can't fill the positions we currently have because there's shortage within the industry, and I think we can tackle that challenge along with the mindset. This place will continue to be a better place for people to work at, and that's my goal.
That's great.
All righty?
I absolutely love it. And I love the fact you're getting 2 nap rooms.
Yeah, exactly.
Send me pictures.
Exactly. How about a big thank you for Arianna?